For the benefit of those who aren't regular to River City Church, for the past 3 weeks, my wife and I have been gone. We've been out of town, and we've been touring Africa with another member of the church, James Rennie, and we've been checking out projects that work with widows and orphans who've been devastated by the AIDS pandemic. And this trip, for Barb and I at least, was something that was really 3 years in the planning. 3 years ago, we were at a leadership conference, and Bono was one of the speakers. And looking at church leaders, Bono challenged us, and he said, you know, the Church of Jesus Christ needs to step up its role in the fight against AIDS and against poverty in Africa in particular. And that kind of got the ball rolling for us. And now that we're back, I have to tell you, and I'm sure it will be no surprise, that our eyes have been opened. And things are going to change. And this is going to have implications for our church as well, and you're going to hear more about that in weeks to come. As they say in the movies, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So if I wasn't already on a high, having arrived safely home from Africa, today is Easter Sunday. And so before I go any further, I just want to wish all of you a very happy Easter. And if you come here regularly, if you've been here to previous Easter services, you know this is my absolute favorite Sunday of the year. I believe the Easter message is the absolute greatest message ever told. It's like the climax point in a great action movie. See, the Easter message demonstrates God, His love and His care for us personally, individually, in a way that no other message has and no other message could. And today you're going to have the opportunity to commit to that message, to receive it for yourself personally, as Melissa alluded to earlier. And if you've already committed, then like me, this is your opportunity to recommit yourself. So for those of you joining us for the first time, we've been looking at the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's one of the most well-loved stories in the Bible. It's one of the most well-known stories that Jesus told. And like I said, it's called a parable. The parable of the Good Samaritan. And a parable is just a story with a deeper meaning. Oftentimes people who heard parables the first time, they didn't get it. It was like there was a hidden meaning. But there's this deeper meaning to Jesus' parables. And he told these stories so that people with ears to hear, people who really wanted to listen, wanted to get the moral of it or the message from it, would discover that. And like a treasure, they would then apply it to their daily lives. And this particular parable, the parable of the Good Samaritan, is recorded in the Bible in Luke chapter 10. And Jesus' message in this particular parable is so radical and revolutionary that here we are 2,000 years after he first told this. And the phrase, the image, the story of a Good Samaritan is familiar to people whether they go to church regularly or whether they don't. It's remembered by Christians and non-Christians alike. For the past month, some of our teachers here at River City have been unpacking this story. We've been looking at the actions of the Good Samaritan in the story so that each of us could be encouraged to translate those actions that are in print in the Bible into our own lives in everyday circumstances and situations. And we've discovered, and it was alluded to in the drama we just watched again, that something radical happened. The Good Samaritan did something really unheard of, unthinkable, and that is this, that he helped his sworn enemy. He helped his sworn enemy when his enemy was in need. Not just an enemy, not just someone that he didn't like, but Samaritans and Jews were sworn enemies. And we get a bit of a picture of that when we think of the conflict that still goes on, sadly, tragically, in Palestine and Israel today. The Samaritan was a man of integrity. He couldn't walk by someone who was injured, enemy or not, and then look the other way. And if you look at the earlier messages in this series, and if you combine them with what I think the essence of this parable is, we're left with three takeaways. Number one, while it may be easy for you and I to justify not loving others, not loving certain people, you picture who that person is for you, or that group of people is for you, while we can easily justify such attitudes, they're never right, and they're never acceptable. Second, a neighbor is anyone of any religion, creed, race, or social background in need. A neighbor is anyone in need. And then number three, loving others means to act to meet that need. Loving others means to act to meet that need. You and I can say that we love others. We can say that we love certain people groups. Yeah, I care about those people. But if we don't do anything to demonstrate that love, then how will they ever know? Then it's just words. And it's not going to make a difference. Well, Bible scholars, have been debating the deeper meaning of this parable for centuries. Was Jesus just trying to give us instruction on how people ought to treat one another? Is that the meaning of the parable of the Good Samaritan? Or was Jesus trying to get people to understand a little bit more fully why he had come to this earth? Was this story in some way, shape, or fashion about Jesus himself? Is Jesus himself the Good Samaritan? And are we, the people on earth, like the one who has been beaten and is injured and is lying on the side of the road in need of his rescue? Well, like I said, the Bible experts have been debating this and weighing this for many, many years. But today, on Easter Sunday, 2010, I want to make the case for Jesus being the ultimate Good Samaritan. He's not the Good Samaritan in the story, no. He's the ultimate Good Samaritan. I mean, we've got ultimate frisbee, we've got ultimate fighting, so why not an ultimate Good Samaritan, right? And you and I are like the wounded man who is on the side of the road in Jesus' parable. We've fallen, and we can't get up. So far as we know, the wounded man in Jesus' parable did nothing to deserve being mugged by these thieves. He did nothing to deserve being beaten, robbed, stripped naked, and then left for half dead on the side of the road. There's no indication that it was his fault. And we're the same in some ways. We've fallen as a result of the sin that our first parents, Adam and Eve, committed. In choosing to obey the serpent, Adam and Eve were choosing to disobey God. And in the Bible, we're taught that to disobey God is to sin. To disobey God is to sin. And with that first episode, all humanity got derailed. And in the same way that a newborn child can inherit a deadly virus like HIV from a parent, you and I have inherited a sin condition from our first parents. But things aren't as simple as we'd like them to be, are they? And this is the same here. We aren't complete victims the way that the man traveling down the road from Jerusalem to Jericho who was mugged by thugs was a complete victim. We haven't just fallen as a result of the sin that we've inherited from our first parents. We've fallen as a result of sins that we ourselves commit, of the things that we ourselves do. Remember, to disobey God is to sin, and by that definition, every person in this room, every person on planet Earth is a sinner. As Scripture says in Romans chapter 3, there's no one righteous, not even one. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And that's where a lot of people tune out the Christian message. They stop with Romans chapter 3 and that truth that we discover there. They say, well, it seems hopeless. You're telling me that God's expectations for obedience are too high? I can't reach them on my own, and life would be boring if I tried? So why bother?